I looked outside. What did I see? A little bird. He looked at me. I lured him close. With a piece of bread. And then I smashed. His little head. The moral of the story is. You want some head. You need some bread. Right turn. Huh.
Everybody knows that the dice are loaded. Everybody rolls with their fingers crossed. Everybody knows the war is over. Everybody knows that the good guys lost. Everybody knows the fight was fixed. The poor stay poor, the rich get rich. That's how it goes. Yeah, everybody knows. Everybody knows that the boat is leaking. Everybody knows that the captain lied. Everybody got that broken feeling, like their father or their dog just died. Everybody talking to their pockets. Everybody want a box of chocolates and a long stem rose. Yeah, everybody knows. Everybody knows that you love me, baby. Everybody knows that you really do. Everybody knows that you've been faithful, give or take a night or two. Everybody knows you've been discreet, but there were so many people you just had to meet without your clothes. Yeah, everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. Yeah, everybody knows. And everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. And everybody knows that it's now or never. Everybody knows that it's me or you. Everybody knows you live forever when you've gone and done a line or two. Everybody knows the deal is rotten. Old Black Joe still picking cotton for your ribbons and bows. Yeah, everybody knows. And everybody knows that the plague is coming. Everybody knows that it's moving fast. Everybody knows that the naked man and woman are just a shining artifact of the past. Everybody knows the scene is dead, but there's gonna be a meter on your bed that will disclose what everybody knows. Everybody knows that you're in trouble. Everybody knows what you've been through. From the bloody cross on top of Calvary to the beach of Malibu. Everybody knows it's coming apart. Take one last look at this sacred heart before it blows. Yeah, everybody knows.
I looked outside. What did I see? A little bird. He looked at me. I lured him close. With a piece of bread. And then I smashed. His little head.
I don't even know how to start this stream, and I'm never actually lost for words. So today, what we learned was that let me explain something. The DUP have been in consultation mode. Jeffrey Donaldson has been in consultation mode. The thing is that they've been consulting people from within our community. That's the Unionist community here in Northern Ireland. And the thing is that some people still are Unionists, still want to stand up for the Union, still want to fight for the Union. They want to fight for the Union in a meaningful, proactive way. They want to fight for the Union in a way that would defend, protect, and enhance Northern Ireland's place within the Union. And by extension, actually, we are the battlefront for the Union here in Northern Ireland. It just so happens that we have chosen leaders who don't actually think the same as we do. So when you go into consultation mode, when you're out and about explaining to people what it is that you're minded to do, don't be surprised if some people that you are consulting with comes and tells people like Restore UK of what it is that your plans are. So we understand that there are 12 people in the executive of the DUP. 12 people, and I'm putting this out to the live chat. What we need to do is that we need to understand who those 12 people are. Now, I'm not advocating violence. I'm not advocating any retribution towards these people. But what I'm aiming at doing is to simply I'm going to appeal to those 12 people first and foremost. Let me do this. Can you, in your conscience, stand out and explain to the people in Northern Ireland what it is that you're about to do, why it is that you want to do it? Give us your rationale, give us your arguments for what it is that you're about to do. Explain why that it is that you, in my honest opinion, you have forgotten about the sacrifices that has been made in order to keep people part of the United Kingdom from here in Northern Ireland. Are you prepared to walk over the graves of the people that have, stood up for this place in the past and who have lost their lives as a result? Do you think that what you're about to do, do you think that, it's some sort of good deal, and we'll come to that in a minute. But do you think that it's some sort of good deal that you're doing? Do you think that you're saving the Union? Do you think that you're fighting for the Union? Do you think that you're copper fastening the Union? Do you think that the United Kingdom will continue under the deal that you collective lot within the DUP leadership, those 12 in the executive? Do you think that what you're doing in any way will ensure that the Union will survive? Have you listened to Chris Heaton-Harris this morning on BBC Radio Ulster, just before 9 o'clock? Chris Heaton-Harris was on the radio in, I'm going to say, how do I say this here? At certain times in our past, whenever things were about to happen, and maybe people from within the DUP executive don't actually trust the British government because of, we've seen how the British government in times gone by, like Boris Johnson, has stood at the DUP at their party conference saying that no British Unionist or no British Unionist Prime Minister could ever contemplate placing a border in the Irish Sea. So people are rightfully so once bitten and twice shy. So I'm aiming at the 12 DUP party executive right now, and I'm asking Chris Heaton-Harris, the British government, they've promised you something. They promised that if you were to do something, well then, in tandem, as a choreographed exercise, the British government would then come up with the goods. They would put in place something that it is that you want. We heard earlier on Radio Ulster, Chris Heaton-Harris saying that the British government, and I have to choose my words very, very carefully here, but we heard earlier on that Chris Heaton-Harris would have said that the British government will put in legislation and they will copper fasten Northern Ireland's place within the United Kingdom. They will write into legislation that Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, will be part of the United Kingdom, but that's as far as it goes. How long would that be for, is the question that I would ask. I'm asking those 12 executive members of the DUP to think, just think. Have you been conned in the past? Have you been swindled in the past? The leverage that the DUP have right now, the leverage which has worked, the leverage that people like ourselves at Restore were pushing for since the protocol came into being, threaten their Achilles heel, threaten their precious agreement, bring down their precious agreement, do not work with anything that flows from the Belfast Agreement going forward. And as I've said in the past, all the standing and protocol rally stages in the world, all the protesting in the world will not gain the same results as threatening their precious Belfast Agreement. Sleepy Joe Biden is coming here at Easter. It's on. It was reported in Belfast Live today. And why was it reported in Belfast Live today? Well, that's because the DUP leadership, you'll see it at the bottom of my name here, are, well, as in the words of that song, they're rolling, rolling, rolling. That's what they're doing. They have accepted the 7 tests. The tests were weak. We went through their weak tests. We understand that their tests are written in a form of constructive ambiguity. Let's give you an example. In number six test, and this is just off the top of my head, it says that no new quote unquote regulatory customs border. Well, what that means is that the existing customs and regulatory border under the protocol, which isn't acceptable to any British Unionist here in Northern Ireland, well, it can stay. It gets the DUP's thumbs up, but they don't want no new regulatory or customs border. You see, this is what these people have been doing, and some of us who have been betrayed time and time and time again by successive, and I'm not going to say conservative leaders, I'm going to say successive Unionist leaders here in Northern Ireland. Some of us who have ate, slept, drank and breathed this have learned to look for words, have learned to try to understand, well, why is that word there? Why is that word new stuck in the middle of no new regulatory and customs border? Why couldn't they have written it no regulatory or customs border? Take that word new out, put that word new in, and it means something completely different than people would anticipate that it means. But you see, those words were put there for a purpose, so that it gives these 12 members of the DUP hierarchy the wriggle room that they would need to compromise. To compromise on, well, at a time whenever British Unionists have nothing left to compromise on. So at the top of my screen, you'll see it. DUP back on Stormont, but no rush. No rush. By now, people knows what it is that we do. By now, people knows that we don't make these claims if they're not right. The DUP are consulting within our community. They have consulted several groups to date. Several groups from several sources have literally told us the same thing. What it is that the DUP are minded to do, and when it is that the DUP are minded to do exactly what they want to do. Let me remind people of the DUP's election promises before the last Assembly election. Watch this and we'll come back and we'll talk some more. We're not staying for long. We're just explaining to the people in Northern Ireland what it is that your brilliant leaders are proposing doing in your name.
To stand together, united in our determination that the protocol must go and our democratic rights as British citizens should be fully restored. Thank you.
I want to be clear to the House that this is not about scrapping the protocol. Our aim is to deliver on the protocol's objectives.
The statement today is a welcome, if overdue, step. That is a significant move towards addressing the problems created by the protocol and getting power sharing based upon a cross-community consensus up and running again.
Our aim is to deliver on the protocol's objectives. That this is not about scrapping the protocol.
So what you'll have just seen there is you'll have seen the Jeffrey Donaldson that was standing strong for on behalf of the DUP on the protocol rally stages before the last Assembly election, seeking your vote, canvassing for your vote, making promises that the protocol must go, that the democratic right of the people of Northern Ireland should, now there's another word for you, should, quote unquote, be fully respected. Should. If I was drafting that, I would say the democratic right of the people of Northern Ireland must be fully respected or fully restored. You see, these people are clever with words. These people use words that would allow them wriggle room. In fact, there are 7 tests. It is littered with constructive ambiguity that can mean one thing to one party, whilst it means completely the opposite to another party. It is, well, I can't put any gloss on it. It is spin, it is swindle, it is fudge, it is trying to, I'm going to say it is trying to con the electorate that they are seeking the vote from. I'm going to look for something here for 2 seconds. Just bear with me. This wasn't planned. I have it in front of me. Any new arrangements must fulfill Article 6 of the Act of the Union. What does fulfill mean? Well, if I had been drafting that, I would have wrote any new arrangement must restore Article 6 of the Act of the Union fully. But fulfill? Does that mean that there can be another way in which that Article 6, and we learned this through the Supreme Court, can remain in a disapplied state, and yet it can be fulfilled in another way, whilst Article 6 from the Act of the Union has been removed, taking away the Unionist rights from within Northern Ireland? What does Article 6 state? That people from Northern Ireland should be on an equal footing with people in England, Scotland and Wales. Why? Why? Who wrote that? Are these people not capable of being solid in their determination that the Union needs to be saved? Avoid any diversion of trade. Well, a green lane. with EU customs and regulatory checks, with digital data supplied to the EU, with an EU-inspired customs and regulatory border which impedes the constitutional integrity of the United Kingdom, it can be in place. But because it's a digital border, well, you can avoid any diversion of trade because traders can travel right down that lane without being stopped. So I'm not even going to go through these here because they're written in so weak of words that it is absolutely unbelievable. And we have been warning of this for a very long time. Let's go to number 6. And we reckon that this is where Jeffrey actually stands right now. Now, ensure no new. What about saying ensure no regulatory borders develop between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK? Well, what that does is that gives the DUP the regular room to say that what is there as a result of the protocol, it can stay, but we don't want any new regulatory customs and borders. But however, with the result of the Windsor framework, what we've learned is that there is a huge spin going on the fact that they're saying that there's this thing called a Stormont break, which absolutely is meaningless, which provides the illusion that the people from within Stormont can actually stop things when in fact they actually can't. And we're not going to focus on this because we're not staying for too long. You know, I think back to just a few weeks ago whenever Jeffrey Donaldson, what he did was that he done a reshuffle and he put in place his new Northern Ireland Assembly team. Why did he do that? Why would he have done that? Jeffrey Donaldson, why did you do that? Why did the DUP 12 in the hierarchy in the executive agree to do that? Well, that's because they knew that they were going back into Stormont. It's on top of my screen, from here to there, DUP back in Stormont, but no rush. They have told influential people from within our community today and in the last few days that this is their course of action. Thank heavens for whistleblowers. That's all I'm going to say. Thank heavens for whistleblowers. So what's the implications of the DUP giving away the only leverage that the people of Northern Ireland have for creating the circumstances in where that they're being treated fair? What is the implications of the DUP 12 in the executive actually agreeing to do such a thing? Let me come back in 2 seconds. I have a pen in my hand. I want to show people in a childlike way the implications. Let me just play something. Stay with us, because the punchline comes very, very shortly. And what I'm looking for here is just a little interlude, a little something that we can play, and I'll be back very, very shortly. I'm going to play through with a song, and stay with us because let me do something, and I'll be back to explain exactly what the DUP are going to do.
Well, I walk towards the old town hall with a group of my mates by my side. Well, to join up the Ulster division. Well, they knew I was young, but I lied. But arriving in Europe, well, it hit me the reality of what I would do. I would clamor all the trench ladder when the captain his whistle he blew. Well, tonight as I lie in my dugouts, well, I'm cold and encased in the mud. Well, I long to be with you, my darling. Well, to hold you and to warm up my blood. We would walk hand in hand through old Belfast, through the streets that I love, Sandy Road. But I know that this will never happen, for tomorrow to the battle I'll go. Yes, remember, I'll always will love you. Tell my mom, my dad just the same. Well, I'm afraid like the lads here beside me, none in France I will surely remain. Well, I'll fight and I'll die for old Ulster, for the England and the red, white and blue. Don't disturb me, lads, I am writing to my girl back in Belfast, so true. Well, she broke her wee heart when I left her. Well, my Ulster, I'll do this for you. So I bid you good night now, my darling, for it's dark and I can't seem to write. Yes, remember the Ulster Division, for the Ulster will always be right. Yes, remember the Ulster Division, oh, the Ulster will always be right.
So now that we're back, okay, so this is how that I would explain it in a childlike fashion, what it is that the DUP are about to do. Maybe the 12 in the executive of the DUP don't understand the implications of what it is that they're about to do. And, you know, let me just show people something. Okay, so I've written on this piece of paper here that the union is broken up into two pieces, okay? It is broken up into a political union, and it is broken up into, well, between two pieces, political union and economic union. Now, what the DUP are about to agree to is that they're about to agree that the UK will keep the political union, and Chris Heaton-Harris has actually said on Radio Ulster this morning that he will create legislation which will tell us that we are in the union, that we will remain in the union. But remember what we learned through the Supreme Court. The people at Restore UK took the British government to court, a judicial review here in Belfast, an appeal to the judicial review. We got right through to the Supreme Court in London, only to hear that whilst their arguments were solid, whilst their arguments were right, that the British government in Westminster, because the Parliament is sovereign, well, they can do whatever they want. They can change the law. They can change the internationally recognized agreement that is the Belfast Agreement, which is sacrosanct, which they said from America, from Europe, from Dublin, from London, that they could not interfere with that agreement. But yet it was changed to allow the protocol to come into being. It is about to be changed again, and I'll explain that in a second. So the British government are about to change the Northern Ireland Act 1998 to put in legislation yet again for the second time. The protocol they've done it with, they're about to do it for the Windsor Betrayal Agreement. And what that actually means is, here's the paper, here's the diagram. Political union means British in name only. Economic union means that the EU and Dublin governs our trade. They have the authority over our trade. They have the say in our trade. They direct our trade. They tell us that we have to have a border in between England, Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland. They tell us that we have to have green lanes, red lanes, customs and regulatory checks. Let's not levy all this to Jeffrey Donaldson and his conglomerate. It was Doug Beattie who put this in place. He claims in a triumphalist way that he sold this to the Americans, that he sold this to the EU, that he sold this to the Dublin government. He calls it the landing zone. And he said that we're hovering around this landing zone. Why don't we land? Why don't we land in a place in where that the Belfast Agreement that was promising Unionists that the principle of consent guaranteed their place in the United Kingdom, that there couldn't be constitutional change within the United Kingdom until there was a vote put to the people. But now we learn, whenever the Unionists reach for the safeguards contained within Article 1 of the Northern Ireland Act 1998, which that guarantee is placed in, when we reach for that safeguard, it doesn't work for us. We are told that the British government, Westminster government, Westminster Parliament is sovereign and they can change that if they want. That's what the Supreme Court concluded. I respect the Supreme Court's decision because what they were doing is that they were applying their law in accordance with parliamentary sovereignty. So they were technically right, but it doesn't mean that we were technically wrong whenever that we argued that Article 6 of the Act of the Union was subjugated, that it was changed, that it removed British Unionist rights here in Northern Ireland, in that we are now not equal citizens in the United Kingdom, that we now don't have the rights, that we now don't have the privileges which was written in that Article 6 of the Act of the Union. You know, the British government changed that. They changed that. They argued, well, it wasn't disapplied. They said that it was, well, they argued that it wasn't subjugated, it was disapplied, they said. Disapplied, they meant that it could be reapplied at some point in the future. Well, when's that point going to be? That's on the never, 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 ever. So look, we have ate, slept, drank and breathed this here, and we're now about to be handed over by Jeffrey Donaldson and 12 people in the DUP to be, right, that we're a political union governed by the UK, that we're economic union governed by EU and Dublin. In other words, they govern our trade. And we are now, this is a phrase that every single British Unionist in Northern Ireland should understand, and should understand that 12 people from within the DUP have agreed that this is the way that they are concluding Northern Ireland's place within the United Kingdom. They are concluding that each and every British citizen here in Northern Ireland are British in name only. A bit like Brexit, you know, they said that we got Brexit, but we didn't. We got Brexit in name only. Now, they are now pushing us to the point in where that we are British in name only. Who is Jeffrey Donaldson? What is Jeffrey Donaldson? Who does Jeffrey Donaldson work for? What interest does Jeffrey Donaldson work for? It was said by Steve Baker on a newspaper article just a few days ago. And I'm asking people, whether you're on this live stream right now or whether you come to watch this in the future, and I'm asking you to make your own decisions. Don't listen to John Yates. Don't listen to Restore UK. You make your own determination based on the information that we provide. You make your own determination. So, Jeffrey Donaldson, he's a Queen's Privy Councillor or a King's Privy Councillor right now. He is Sir Jeffrey Donaldson. He's an MP. Now, he got elected to be an MP, so we're not going to quibble about that. He is a trade envoy to Cameroon. He's a trade envoy to, don't shout at me if I get this wrong, but we know that there's another one. I think it's Egypt. He is the director of the Centre for Democracy and Peace, which we proved here in Restore in a lengthy expose, that the Centre for Democracy and Peace was originally funded, and probably still is funded, by a CIA slush fund. So ask yourself who Sir Geoffrey is. Why has Sir Geoffrey got so many titles? Why has no other unionist in the history of unionism got those titles? Did Geoffrey get those titles on his merits? Hang on, didn't he walk away from David Trimble? So why has he got so many titles? Why has the British government, why has the establishment bestowed so many titles upon Sir Geoffrey Donaldson? Sir Geoffrey Donaldson was out persuading your community today, and well, on days gone by, and on days to come, that you should accept to be British in name only, that you should accept a political union, and you should forfeit the economic union. You should hand that to the EU. I think that the EU are in there so that it covers the fact that the Dublin government will be running the trade arrangements here in Northern Ireland and dictating the terms in where that there has to be a border between England, Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, subjugating the Act of the Union, removing citizens' rights from within that Act of the Union, in where that, well, we are not on an equal footing with people in England, Scotland and Wales. And that's the guarantee from within the Act of the Union, Article 6. We learned through the High Court that has been disapplied. Why is Geoffrey Donaldson promoting, selling that Unionists in Northern Ireland, despite their sacrifices, despite all that we have went through, despite the fact that terrorists are now in our government, despite the fact that terrorists, unrepentant terrorists, continue to add insult to the injury of their victims? Why is Sir Geoffrey Donaldson promoting that we should roll over, that the DUP should roll or be rolling until Northern Ireland's place within the United Kingdom is a fraction of what it was just a few months ago? Why is Sir Geoffrey Donaldson out selling this idea of, well, Northern Ireland is finished, Northern Ireland is over, Northern Ireland, well, 100 years there it was whenever the protocol came into being. Geoffrey Donaldson's saying, well, that's it over, pull the shutters down, turn off the lights, last man leaving, it's over, it's finished. All the guarantees in the world from the British government right now in legislation for the behalf of a unionist, well, it doesn't suit me, and I'm hoping that it doesn't suit you also. Now, at Restore UK, we're not making this up. We have got solid information that this is what Geoffrey is persuading for. I'm willing to sacrifice myself. I'm willing to put myself out there. I'm willing to expose this in a David and Goliath way. Who are we fighting against? I remember being on a stage in Newton Ards in 2019. I remember being in front of, I don't know what, several hundred loyalists and unionists. I remember telling them something that they thought was unpalatable. I remember being shouted down. And what was it that I said? I said that we won't win this because this is too big to defeat. That we won't win this because, well, what was my rationale? I thought that it was better to manage this in a way that we are left standing at the very end. Now, perhaps that's what those 12 people in the DUP actually believe. Because make no mistake, this is globalization telling you, telling me, telling everyone else that we are not allowed to be part of the greatest union that the world has ever seen, that we are not allowed to leave the European, the EU dictatorial Ponzi scheme, the undemocratic one at that. We're not allowed to leave that. You know, that's what they're telling us. But we don't expect our leaders to line their own pockets, to line their own nest, to get the pleasantries for them. Well, it's we the people are left to fend for ourselves, because this is what these people are doing. These people are looking after themselves. Jeffrey Donaldson is looking after himself. People that follow us on Restore, they know that we've been telling people this for a very, very long time. We've been showing people the evidence. For the people that are here that haven't been here before, let me just explain something. And you answer this question in your own mind whenever you hear some of Jeffrey's utterings. Here we go. What Unionists would say this?
Look, if we have passport controls in Liverpool, does that matter to me? Absolutely not. The things that matter to me are so much more important than this silly debate about whether we'll have the odd border post or passport checks.
And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries.
Look, if we have passport controls in Liverpool, does that matter to me? Absolutely not.
And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries.
When it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries. In this case, the boundary that is between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, the border. Jeffrey and his conglomerate at the top of the DUP, those 12 people, and I'm asking people to furnish us at Restore with every single name of every single person that is in that DUP executive. If you care for your place in the United Kingdom, let us know. We're not afraid to expose things. People in the past that have stood out, that have stood against, that have stood up, they've lost their lives. I can remember myself and a man called John Ross in 2019. We were part of a thing called the Unionist group, who were tasked to help get the DUP elected before the last general election, which occurred on the, let me get this right, the 12th of December in 2019. So some of us put our money, our hands in our own pockets to hire halls, to pay for insurance for halls, to set up things like the Ulster Hall rally and so on. I was part of the committee that done that. We were made certain promises by the DUP once they got elected. Now, I'm going to mention a name here from within the DUP. I've said it before, and it's public knowledge because I've told it before. And the only reason why that I've told this, I mean, I'm not breaking anyone's confidence, is because that this particular man from within the DUP summoned myself and a man called John Ross to his office in Lisburn. We goes in, we sit down, and he tells us and explains what it was that the DUP were minded to do, and fair play to Edwin Poots. And there's nothing that I could say about Edwin Poots other than that he was brutally honest with us with reference to the DUP's intentions, and before that they'd done it. So, you know, you can respect a man like that, at least that he tells you what it is that they're going to do. Now, we disagreed with what it was that they were going to do. And when we disagreed, the DUP went radio silence. They wouldn't contact us. They wouldn't talk to us. They wouldn't do anything. They then went on and they done this thing called the New Decade, New Deal approach, contrary to the promises that was made when we in the Unionist group were helping them get elected right around this country. What they did was they shafted us. So we knew the DUP and we know them inside out. We know that they tell you one thing and they do the complete opposite. So what I see happening right now is reminiscent of what it was that happened in 2019, in where that Jeffrey Donaldson promised people on the protocol rally stages right around the right around the Northern Ireland, that the protocol must go and the democratic right of the people must be fully respected. Now, when Jeffrey got into the Great Hall in Stormont, whenever he got his MLAs elected, what he did was he said that we need to deal with the issues around the protocol. And I see when I seen those words, years of betrayal, you know, of successive unionist leaderships has taught us to listen to their words, look at the words, you know, understand every single word that they say, pass it to other people, ask for opinion. Yeah, years of betrayal has taught us to smell betrayal, and even before it comes. And what you're seeing right now is you're seeing the DUP, who were elected on a mandate of the protocol must go, that the democratic right of the people must be fully restored. What you're seeing is you're seeing the complete rollover of the electoral promises made by the DUP on the protocol rally stages, which we suspected was only there to get the DUP elected in the first place. What the DUP are in danger of doing is causing the biggest disconnect within British unionism in Northern Ireland that I have ever seen in my lifetime. They are about to do the wrong thing. They are about to even ditch the weak test that they had. They are about to accept Chris Heaton Harris's recommendations or his promises that, well, that there would be legislation put forward to say that we are, let's get this right, in a political union with the UK, British in name only, but we are in an economic union with EU and Dublin, and they govern our trade and they direct our trade and they tell us what it is that we can do within our own country. Now, that is completely contrary to the Belfast Good Friday Agreement, which brings into question that agreement is now dead, that agreement is now buried, that agreement, and here we go. What is it Jeffrey Donaldson, DUP, Magnificent 12 are actually promising? They're saying that we're going back into Stormont to work within the confines of an agreement which doesn't work for British Unionists, which has been shown not to work for British Unionists. The only thing that we got out of that Belfast Agreement was the principle of consent. It was declared in the Supreme Court in London on the 29th of November last year and the 1st of December that they, well, they said that what they did was that they disapplied the Act of the Union, which provided for our rights, which had implications for the Northern Ireland Act 1998, Article 1 specifically. We were arguing, well, what about the principle of consent? We need that principle of consent to work for us because we don't want that constitutional change. And they said, well, look, that doesn't actually apply. That only applies to the final handover in where there's a border poll. So what they were saying was that you can strip away every single aspect of our union until, you know, this big fat union, until it's like, you know, skeleton-like, and then you can have a border poll, and only then does that principle of consent occur. But that's not what they were telling us when they were asking us to buy into this principle of consent. They were saying that the union is safe, that there can be no constitutional change without a referendum being put to the people. But now they're saying, make no mistake, there's the diagram, wakey wakey, and Willie Joe Ross is saying this here, wakey wakey folks, that we are now going to be in a political union, British in name only, and an economic union, EU and Dublin governs our trade. They are giving the Republicans half of our union, and they are saying to us, well, we are still in a political union with the UK. I'm going to quote something that Jim Allister said. He said that, and he said this with due respect to Jim Allister has called things several times. And looking back, I have to say that he has been absolutely spot on in his analysis. Jim Allister said on the Ulster Hall rally stage on the 6th of December in 2019, the rally for the Union, he said that when your economic union is subjugated, it's a short step to full political union being handed over. I mean, that's what the EU done. They said it was an economic union, and then they creeped. And now you see what the EU are trying to do. They're trying to take over absolutely everything, and that's the reason why we wanted to leave the EU. So nothing that they do hasn't been done before. No strategy that they participate in hasn't been clearly seen before. It's a short step from an economic union to a full political union. And today, what the DUP are proposing is that you forfeit half of your Britishness. You forfeit and you give it completely to the EU. And the DUP are happy to actually work in those certain circumstances. So I'm going to stop. I don't have to go any further. This is the truth. This is the fact. This is what Jeffrey Donaldson and his conglomerate are persuading for in Northern Ireland right now. Whistleblowers from within our own community has given us this heads up, and I thank them. I totally thank them for presenting it to Restore UK in the way that they did. It's down to you. It's up to you. What is the answer? What is the answer? I can tell you what I'm going to do, and maybe you can make your own determination for yourself. If the DUP are minded to shaft me, if the DUP are minded to, I'm going to say, scupper every single thing that I've ever believed in, if the DUP are prepared to remove me from my place in the United Kingdom, if the DUP are prepared to sell me out on my Britishness, if the DUP are prepared to recognise that I did not get my democratic right from within that Brexit referendum, and if the DUP are prepared to accept that, well, I'm not prepared to accept the DUP. We have other options, people. We have other options, and I intend pursuing those other options with every single fibre in my being. And one more thing before we close. The people that are minded to sell us out, the people that are selling us out, the people are persuading for selling us out, I don't know. I don't look. Maybe I shouldn't even go there. But you're not going to get away with it. You're not going to get away with it. Let me say it in this way. I tackled Jeffrey Donaldson on a stage in Dromore, County Down, on the protocol rally stages. And I said it like this, and I put it like this. Should anything happen to Northern Ireland's place within the United Kingdom, should anything happen, I blame Jeffrey Donaldson. I blame Jeffrey Donaldson and the conglomerate that runs the DUP, because the writing was on the wall. The proof was there. Jeffrey doesn't mind protocol, or he doesn't mind passport checks in Liverpool. He says that there's silly debates over the customs checks, the EU-inspired regulatory and customs checks slap bang in the middle of the United Kingdom. He says that's not what's in his mind. He doesn't represent me. He doesn't represent Unionists. He doesn't represent Unionism. He doesn't represent Northern Ireland's place within the United Kingdom. He does not represent the United Kingdom. He represents a self-serving nature in where the advancement for him is more important than all the sacrifice that people in Northern Ireland, you've got to excuse me, let me compose. I get emotional. Jeffrey Donaldson. Well, it's over to you. We know what you're doing. We will ensure that people knows what you're doing. And I hope that you can walk amongst British Unionists in Northern Ireland in the future for what exactly you're doing. Playing this out. Thanks very much for listening.
Look, if we have passport controls in Liverpool, does that matter to me? Absolutely not. The things that matter to me are so much more important than this silly debate about whether we'll have the odd border post or passport checks.
You know, the greatest challenge that we face is bringing our own people with us, making peace with your friends.
Any man who is not with us is against us. When is a unionist not a unionist? When he creates disunion.
Well, in the end, customs checks doesn't mean that you change the constitutional status of a part of the United Kingdom.
This is the most momentous election that we have ever had to face. We must elect those who would fight for the Union, not those who would oppose it.
Already we're seeing the political parties and business leaders coming together to see how we actually exploit the opportunities that may arise from this situation.
Any man who is not with us is against us.
And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries to see how we actually exploit the opportunities that may arise from this situation.
Any man who is not with us is against us.
The Northern Ireland Assembly is the place where every element of our society is represented. Such partnership is how we must move forward. And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries.
When is a unionist not a unionist? When he creates disunion.
The sheet of paper you were given didn't show you all these different regulations on them, so it didn't even mention how many regulations there were. And when I queried that, I asked one of the DUP spads, because I knew it had something to do with it, and I was given this assurance that it was keeping us in line with the rest of the United Kingdom, and there was absolutely nothing to worry about.
And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries.
I trusted what I was told, and I made a mistake. And that's how it was sold to me, and I can only apologise.
The Northern Ireland Assembly is the place where every element of our society is represented. And when it comes to peace building, sometimes leaders have to push the boundaries. In August 2016, within weeks of the EU referendum, my party leader, Arlene Foster, penned a letter jointly with the then Deputy First Minister, Martin McGuinness. That letter was written to the UK Prime Minister, Theresa May. And it's worth quoting, I think, from this letter. This region is unique in that it is the only part of the UK which has a land border with an EU member state. There have been difficult issues relating to the border throughout our history and the peace process. We therefore appreciate your stated determination that the border will not become an impediment to the movement of people, goods and services.
Any man who is not with us is against us.
It was pragmatic and constructive. As then First Minister and Deputy First Minister, these two leaders were writing in the same spirit of mutual respect and common sense which enabled my party and Sinn Féin to reach agreement at St Andrews and subsequently to establish a power-sharing government.
We must elect those who will fight for the Union, not those who would oppose it.
And therefore, making peace with your enemies is important, but it can only be successful if you make peace with your friends. Thank you.